Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Scott.
I'm Shatay, and we're the Hazes.
Welcome to the Love Haze podcast, where we believe that healing and wholeness are not just destinations.
That's right. We believe they're a journey, and here on the Love Haze, we talk about how to navigate through it.
Absolutely. Well, it ain't always everybody else's fault, y'all. Sometimes the friction that we experience in relationship is really a result of the fact that we've changed.
Yeah.
We don't always know what that's going to look like or how to navigate through it, but we're going to talk about it today.
Yep.
Welcome back to our Black Love Journey. Let's get right into this thing.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Today's topic is pretty personal to me. I feel like I'm going through a really major shift, season change in my life, and I'm still trying to understand how I'm going to emerge on the other side of it. But we were recently reflecting, I was reflecting with you, processing with you the fact that, in therapy, and I've talked a lot about it on our episodes, about how I need to, my therapist said, I prepare a table for everybody else and don't even pull a seat up for myself, right? So that's the thing that I've been working to correct lately. And so for me, that has looked like honoring how I feel in the moment instead of just holding back, shrinking back how I feel, so that everyone else can feel what they feel. Like that has looked like me just not keeping the peace, even when I feel away, not going off on people, but literally just voicing how I feel in the moment. And I was reflecting to you recently how much friction that has caused in my life recently, friction that I'm not used to. And I could be with friends and literally just saying, hey, this is how I feel and I disagree, with my family, right? At work and everywhere, right? And on the one hand, I'm really, really proud of how I've shown up for myself and honored me because I've given voice to myself the way that I give it to everybody else. I've honored that in a way that I've never done so before. But I was caught off guard by the impact that would have. Like people say in relationships, how you start is how you finish. And so that means usually people say that when, let's say you started off and y'all cheated together and then your relationship ends because one of y'all cheated, right? But for me, it's kind of like I started as a people pleaser, which is what my therapist tells me all the time. Now I'm trying to get out of that, but I don't want the relationships to be over because I don't want to be a people pleaser anymore. And so that has been a challenge.
So now you're a disruptor.
I'm a disruptor.
All right.
And
so
it's been very uncomfortable.
You are disrupting patterns.
Yes.
And being a disruptor sometimes is the weight of it can be heavy. So I saw something recently that said something like I went from the anxiety of not having boundaries to the guilt of having boundaries.
That is real.
Really stuck with me.
That's real. And it's weird to even identify with that because I felt like I've always had boundaries, especially don't touch my stuff. I want my stuff a certain way. I need my me time. I've always had boundaries in a lot of different ways. But for some reason, me just saying what's on my mind, if I disagree with something or not, or I need space, I need time to respond to something, or actually I disagree with that and you're going to have to explain to me what you mean by it. That has really knocked me off my kilter in a way that is kind of almost had me being like, who am I right now? It's very, very uncomfortable. Would love to start the conversation off now that we've painted that picture about where we are in our conversation today. How do you feel about personal evolution in general?
I think that a part of the reason why I am going to therapy is because personal evolution is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that I think I'm starting to own this label of being a disruptor because the things that I had been doing in my life, they were not working for me. A part of the reason why I am in therapy is because I recognize, even if I don't have the answer for what the change has to be, I know that I have to disrupt some patterns in order for things to change because my life is changing. My life is evolving. And, so much language that we have is around becoming the highest version of yourself, right? But some of that is acknowledging that, what I had been doing, even though every version of me is worthy and was always worthy, I have to disrupt some thought patterns, some reactionary patterns, some things that I've been giving off that were keeping me from being able to evolve. And if I want to be better and do better, then I just have to evolve.
Yeah.
I think that it is natural, it is logical, it is the thing that we are supposed to be doing to evolve, but it does not come without disrupting some old patterns if you want to be better.
Yeah, I don't think I registered that part of it. I was like, yes, I'm gonna start honoring my voice, and yes, I'm gonna
Mm,
speak my mind. Not again, not going off on anybody. I'm just literally going to say how I feel, which I've not done when it comes to like this situation already has the possibility or the opportunity or the tendency to have a little friction. Instead of me just holding my tongue, I was like, actually, I feel this way.
mm,
Um, and I did not anticipate that. Like, oh, yeah, this is the pushback I
mhm,
had always avoided, and now I'm getting it, or they're getting it, and like how it feels to. I guess I just have to get used to that. I have to get comfortable because I
yeah.
think for me, going back is not a thing. I'd also add we were. I don't know if it was. I saw something on Instagram, and I don't know if it was the same that one pastor guy that we talked about showing up healing. I think it was him. It was someone else saying that like every 5 years you're in like a new relationship because
Mhm.
you're different.
I remember that.
That
Yeah.
really resonated with me. And it actually made me think about us. We should probably have a whole episode dedicated to it. Like, how does our marriage look like now on this side of,
Mhm.
5 years together, 3 years married? Like, when I can say wholeheartedly, I am a different person than I was when we met in
Absolutely.
2018.
Mhm.
But how is that showing up in our relationship and what does that mean? The other thing this makes me think about is last night on our way back to Atlanta, I was just now finishing Renaissance, Beyonce's album. Don't judge me, y'all. I had a lot going on in my life. um, but I was just now finishing it, and I love Plastic on the Sofa, that one
Mhm.
song. But she's singing in it about her relationship, and she's saying all the things that she loves about it. And there's one line she's like, "Just promise me you won't change." And I listened to the song about 4 times last night because I loved it so much. Every time I heard it, I was like, "That's not possible."
Mhm.
Like, the person's going to change. You're going to change. So I can understand wanting the feeling of whatever that person is doing to last forever. But please don't change is not a thing.
I guess for me, it requires a little bit of context, right? So the things that I want not to change about you are like your openness to like explore,
Mhm.
and to your openness to understand that I'm going to be different and that you're going to be different. I guess the only thing that I would not want to change would be those ideals that we have at our core,
Values,
and
yes.
those values, those things that resonate with us the most. That like we're in this,
Mhm.
and that we understand that we're going to be people that change, but also I choose you to like change and grow with. And you know, I don't know. I want to be a disruptor.
Of
I
course you
like
do.
everything
You do.
about it.
That
No,
makes
I haven't always wanted to be that. I was that person who wanted to keep the peace. I
mm,
thought that that was my
I
job.
don't know that's good.
Yeah, you don't know him, and good for you.
Yeah.
Um, but that's what it looks like to interrupt patterns of behaviors that no longer serve you. And one of the biggest problems that I have with that is it feels so selfish to say that I don't want to do this thing that no longer serves me, because there's a part of me that has a heart of a servant, right?
Mhm.
And I don't think that everything is supposed to serve me. So having to disrupt even that pattern of feeling like it's selfish
Yeah.
to want things for myself, even if that thing is peace, you know?
That surprises me about you because your profession is to challenge people on their bullshit. And so it
Hmm.
surprises me that that is not more natural, or in the past wasn't more natural for you to just carry over into your real life. That's interesting.
If most people who do the work that I do, who are therapists, social workers, the new language is healers, um,
Mental health practitioners.
mental health practitioners, clinicians.
Mhm.
A lot of those folks who do like the fixing, a lot of those folks have a tendency to be more self sacrificial,
Mm.
more giving of their time, staying later at work, making sure that everybody else is okay, and their lives will be in shambles.
Mm.
And they believe that their work is to do the the work of fixing other people and making sure that everybody else has a good life,
Mm,
and not necessarily doing the work on themselves. They believe that they should be sacrificing at
mm,
all times.
okay.
So,
I hear that.
that's one of those things. How how can we tell if a relationship or a person we're in relationship with has changed?
To me, I think one of the biggest signals is just friction. You know, I'm sharing a lot of I'm literally legitimately processing with y'all right now in the moment because I'm just going to allow whatever comes through to come through.
Hmm.
One of the things so my answer to that question is friction.
Hmm.
When I first moved back to Atlanta, my prayer was like, if this is the right move for me, let every area in my life blossom. Like, let it be fruitful. Let it be a productive move. And I listed every area of my life: social life, like friendships, work, relationships, clearly got married. Just like every part of my life, may it be fertile ground for me to reap like
Hmm.
just a beautiful, rich harvest. And I was in such alignment with this life here in Atlanta. And I say was, and I'll tell you why in a second. But I remember thinking at some point, especially when we were like in the early days, like 2019, 2020, I was
Hmm.
like, oh, this alignment feels
Hmm.
amazing. Like this is just everything that I ever wanted. I had manifested everything I ever wanted.
Hmm.
And now I'm like, what the heck is going on with life? And so there, the things that were working don't work anymore because I'm not the same anymore. Right. And so now I've evolved past this level of alignment that I've had. And now it's time for me to find new alignment. And I'm still in the process of figuring out what that exactly is. But I remember thinking, I guess I say all of that to say, I remember thinking at one point, like, ooh, I hope this feeling never goes away. But in my mind, even like just kind of thinking through myself, I was like, but it will one day. And then what does that mean? I'm not, what does it mean, but how do I get back? And so now I'm at the moment where, we're talking about ebbs and flows of life. I'm in this moment where I have an opportunity to find a new peak. And so, yeah, I can't even say that I noticed it on the downswing. I can't even know, not that it went down, but I can't even put my finger on when it started to change. The only thing I can point to is like I've been in more therapy in the past year or two than I ever have. And I'm sure it's
Yeah.
because of, our fertility journey has changed us a lot or changed me a
Hmm.
lot. Just like work, growing there has changed me a lot. And so the environment, the circumstances I've been in have really like molded me into a new person. And then you look
Yeah.
up and it's like, oh, this life that I once loved, not that I don't love it anymore, not that I'm not grateful for it, not that I don't appreciate it. There are parts of it where I'm like, okay, now I'm ready for the thing that works for this newer version of me. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
It does.
What do you think about
Um,
it?
I'm always about like centering things, like bringing things back to like what I really asked for, and I do not believe that we can pray for this beautiful life and it come without like
Yeah,
the season where we have to till the ground,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
It's not always going to be fruit. In order for things to be fruitful, there has to be a season of planting. There
Mm-hmm.
has to be a season where like we're responsible for making sure that our um, soil is fertile.
Mm-hmm.
That time when you gotta old folks used to turn the ground over, as they
Mm-hmm.
say,
Mm-hmm.
and that is uncomfortable. The labor of having to do that part of the work is uncomfortable when you don't always see fruit in those seasons. You are doing the work of making sure that the ground is ready to bear the fruit that you've asked for. And so to me, these transitions and stuff that we're experiencing in relationship is the part of the season where we have to till the ground and where we don't get to see the beauty of it as much, but it's preparing us
Yeah,
to be able to receive the fruit.
yeah.
And I'll be honest, as beautiful as this story is, it sucks. Um,
Story. The one you just told?
just
Yeah,
the analogy there, it sucks.
yeah.
Because I know like there's some people that I'm in relationship with that I'm going to have to try to give the keys to success in relationship with me that we talked
Mm-hmm.
about before,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody can't come.
Yeah, that makes me sad. It makes me really sad
Right. But those folks have the choice, right? And that's why the name of this episode is not you, is me.
because it really is, y'all.
Right. It's me, it's not them.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated with them for it. And some of that frustration is really because I see the writing on the wall, like, you ain't better come. But
Yeah.
you give people the opportunity to come along, right? So even this weekend, we were just kind of alluding to this a little bit during our off camera conversation.
Mhm.
Being with my family this weekend, I saw my mom, kind of being my mom, messing with the sisters about
Mhm.
their stuff, and
Mhm.
them getting upset with my mom about her just picking. She does that sometimes. And my sister was telling me the story, and I went. I ain't saying, and I thought in my mind, like, that's y'all shit.
Mhm.
That ain't mine. And she was like, do you even care? I was like, nah. Because if you are not deciding to disrupt that pattern, like y'all are having this same argument that y'all have been having for 20 some odd years about how my mom does that little thing she pushes their buttons and gets something. I'm like, why doesn't she do you like that? Because it don't work for
Mhm.
me.
Mhm.
I disrupted that pattern long ago. And my mom knows if she calls and starts doing that little thing where she picks in her children's lives, I'll get off the phone. Like, I don't entertain the conversation.
Yeah.
And the fact that you have decided that you're going to entertain the conversation and go back and forth with this person about the way that you've chosen to live, even if it's your mother, that's on you.
Mhm.
And you're not going to take my joy from what I'm here to do, to be at this family event to discuss that toxicity with you. I'm just not going to do it. And if it's your choice to do it, then that's on you. And so, no, I care.
Mhm.
I want you to make a different choice. I'm not gonna be more invested in it than you are, though. So if that's what y'all doing, then do that. I'm gonna be over here
Okay.
though.
Yeah. That is also, I know we've talked about that before too, like kind of wanting different for other people and they
Hmm.
just continue to make a choice and like they continue to choose the dynamics as is for whatever reason. And I think that's okay. Which kind of brings us to the haze we've kind of already been talking about a little bit, but what do you think the haze is? Just even you explaining that brings to mind for me, just like when people evolve at different paces, which is just life. Like we're not going to evolve, we're not going to change at the same time. So how do you have patience for me when I'm taking a little bit longer and vice versa? Or if we're just maybe we are evolving at the same time, and like what does that do to the dynamics of the way that we were interacting before? But like what are some other hazes
Um,
of growing together? I guess that's what it is.
that's really what it is. It is like that's the. I don't want to beat anybody up about not being there yet, you know. But I'm also choosing not to get in the middle. Like, so same example that I just used, right? So my mom and my sister, like they're here forever. I
Mhm.
still choose to be in relationship with them and to be around them and all of those things, but I'm not going to be a part of that part of
Mhm.
it. And that's difficult for me because I want better for them,
Mhm.
but I cannot disrupt their pattern.
Yeah.
They have to choose to do that. And it don't mean I'm through. I ain't through with them.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go see them in a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
And if they start doing that portion of it, then I'll nudge the conversation somewhere else. But the haze of it is like wanting better for people. And recently, a family member told me, like, I'm so sick of you hearing you talk about that therapy shit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You would tell me that.
And I get it, you know, because if that's not something that you're ready to do, then it's not you, it's me. Right. And if you've decided that what you have going on in this moment works for you,
Mhm.
and especially when you are not in a place of like working towards healing, you don't want to hear people talk about that all the time.
Mhm.
And that may be your thing. I'm okay with that. I told the person I'm all right with it.
Mhm.
This is where I am, and this is the discussion that I'm having. This is what I'm doing. If you ask me what I'm doing and how I am, I'm gonna tell you, what I'm doing and how I am. This
Yep.
is how I am,
Yep.
and that's just what it is for me. What does the haze of it look like for you?
I think it's just friction. It's just things that worked before don't work anymore. That's how you know something or someone has changed. And it doesn't, I don't think, have to always be on my end. It could also be the other person's end. Like even if you think about the way that we were dating in the beginning, let's say, for example, Okay, here's a good one. You bring flowers in the house every couple weeks, and I love the flowers, and also have learned that you love them too, so they're
Hmm.
partly for you. But let's say one day you're like, you bring the flowers in, and I'm just like, they don't move me in the same way, right?
Hmm.
And so then all of a sudden you've got to learn what moves me in that season.
Hmm.
That is a haze because one, I don't think either person gets any heads up that like actually I'm not gonna like flowers no more the next time he gets them for
Yeah.
me, right?
Hmm.
It just happens. Just
Yeah.
the shift I think is subtle, but then all of a sudden one day it's kind of like, could have had a V8.
Hmm.
So there's no notice that the shift is happening. The person often can't tell themselves the shift is happening, or they decide to make a different choice, and then the person on the other end of it, or the people on the other end of it, have to like, well, that used to work. Now what happened? Is it me? Is it, you know what I mean? Like, so there's
Yeah.
all of these things, the fallout of it. So as I was talking about earlier when we first started, the fallout of me all of a sudden just speaking my mind and saying, actually, I don't
Yeah.
agree with this, or I need time, or I need space, or saying what I need, and the other person being like, well, wait a minute, this is new.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm not have to experience this from you in this way before. And all of that is just uncomfortable. And you've got to find your way, if you choose to stay in the relationship, to getting back to like that alignment to what does work. And so all of that is the haze.
That is the nature of relationship.
Hmm.
That is what it looks like to be in relationship with someone. That is what you choose when you say, "Hey, you're my tribe," or we say, "You're my person,"
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But when I say I want to find my tribe in the sense of what a tribe really is are people that like help you grow into the next season of your life. They coach you into it. They're
Yeah.
there with you. They support you through it. The understanding is that you will change. The expectation should be that you will change and be
Listen,
better.
everything will that I'm just adding just this very moment a
Hmm.
song to our music for the moment.
Okay.
Quincy Jones, y'all heard the song "Everything Must Change"? There's been a couple of renditions, but "Everything
Hmm.
Must Change," nothing stays the same. Young
Yeah.
becomes old, winter turns to spring. Like that is life. I agree.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And a part of that too is there is something in every season of relationship, every portion of relationship that I should be learning and I should be teaching,
yeah,
right? That and that part has to happen, and that is what I would hope like finding my tribe looks like. Even though
yeah.
I understand that everybody can't go, it doesn't mean forever. I'm still not a fan of us, just like
Discarding people.
throwing people
Yeah,
away, And even if I say you can't go, that means you can't go for right now. I would hope at some point, we have a phone conversation and you say, "Hmm, I'm into this now." Some of my relationships we've not been as close as we were previously.
yeah.
I was just talking to my boy KK a couple weeks ago, and he and I both have acknowledged that we've not been as close
Mm,
recently as we once were. And me and his brother met up, we had drinks, and we started talking about how life has been happening to both of us. Some family challenges that he's been having, some family challenges that we've been having along our fertility journey. And brother started talking about being in therapy and how and we got so many people that be sneak listening to our podcast, and we be up here not thinking people are viewing, because we don't get response and that kind of stuff. Brother been sneak listen to the podcast, and he brought up something that we said on the podcast during our conversation, and just like he just acknowledged like during this other time, when I was already in therapy, he wasn't ready for
mm,
that. He wasn't ready to make those types of moves. Like he had figured out something that worked for him in order for his life to be able to function,
mm-hmm.
for his marriage to be able to function, for his relationship with his entire family to be able to function. Some things that he was not ready to talk about like the death of his father and all of those things. He found out a way to be able to go to work every day, pay his bills, and go home and be okay. He was not ready to talk about therapy at that time. And Negro been sneak listening to the podcast, done snuck into therapy on me, all these different
Good
things
for you, friend.
because he found the season that he was ready to do that in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we had not been as connected as we were in the past because I was doing this already and he wasn't ready to be there. I ain't throwing that brother away. He always been there for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that we were able to connect and have that conversation, but just
Yeah.
in his own time.
I think the way that I've been able to sort of reconcile with this idea that everybody can't come with you, because I don't want to be a person that throws people away. And sometimes the relationship just has to end, especially if the other person is not doing their part to put in the work. I'm gonna just
Agree.
say
Hmm.
that, or to meet you halfway at least. But it's not, I guess, the way that I'm choosing to think about it. It's not so much that everyone can't come with you, but everyone can't have a front seat, is what the way I've heard some people say it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that, because it doesn't mean that they can't be in the room, but maybe it's just like a smaller circle that can,
Hmm.
be on the front row to your
Hmm.
life. And then that other folks, maybe they just kind of keep continuing to get a few rows back and back and back, and maybe they only come through to the birthday parties or to the
Hmm.
like larger gatherings, and not the more intimate spaces where you're being a little bit more vulnerable. Because also, as you get older and as you like, life just gets more complicated. Well, I'll speak for myself. I need a different type of friend. I was
Hmm.
thinking about recently, I had maybe like 3 or 4 friends within a span of a couple of days out of the blue, and not because I solicited these requests, tell me that they were praying for me for different reasons. That almost brought a tear to my eye. And I was like,
Hmm.
that's exactly what I would want from friendships right now in this space, when I'm trying to figure out all of these different areas of my
Yeah.
life. The way that my job has been changing so much lately, the way that, like, grandparents getting older and like starting to get sicker, and like just life, trying to be a parent, just trying to figure out who I am. I was like, yes, that's what I need. And so
Hmm.
now when I'm going through something, I feel like I can go to those couple people and be like, hey, I know you're already praying. I can either say, hey, this is great, or would you mind praying this for me? And I want to do the
Hmm.
same for them. Right. So it's just, and it's not that the friends who aren't able to, and maybe there are friends praying for me that I don't know, but
Right.
not that the folks that haven't reached out to me that way aren't friends anymore. It's just maybe a little different.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Absolutely.
okay. I don't want to get rid of anybody.
Hmm.
I want them all here in some
Yeah.
capacity, if it makes sense.
And I guess that kind of leans into the part of the like, how do we get,
Navigate it.
navigate it, get it back on track? If that's the desire, like you said, sometimes things have to end,
Yeah.
but it is that's a part of being able to navigate it, being able to figure out how to who has to be, kind of in the back seat for right now. And I don't mind. Also, I think a portion of it that I don't want to leave out is like the having a conversation
Yeah.
part.
Communicate.
I don't want to.
Using our
Oh
words.
Lord Jesus, you just all you need is your time to be able to say use your words.
Mhm.
But I don't want to leave that part out of it. Sometimes it is about having a conversation so people can know where you are
Yeah.
and they can make a decision. And I think for me, keeping the peace for so long looked like just not having a conversation about what I needed. It felt selfish
Mm.
to have the conversation about
Mhm.
what I need.
Mhm.
And where I am in my life right now is a conversation has to be had.
Yeah.
We have to have this conversation.
Yeah.
And the pain of knowing that a person may opt out of that and be like, either I don't want to talk about this with you, or I don't care about what you need
Mhm.
for whatever their reason is. And that felt like rejection to me for a really long time. And I didn't do it for fear of rejection. And so basically, I did it for myself and decided like I'm not even gonna have that conversation so I can keep my friend or I can keep this relationship or I can like keep things the way they are. And I was just miserable in relationship. But it was what I was choosing. I
Mhm.
was choosing to say, um, it's me, you know? And it's selfish for it being
Mhm.
me.
Mhm.
And now I stand strong and not only was written on this shirt, like I'm enough, but
Yeah.
also I'm worthy. You know,
Mhm.
I get to tell people what I need in
We
relationship.
are all worthy. Yeah. To be seen, to be heard. I agree with all of that. And the same true for me. Always goes back to fear of rejection, fear of abandonment. But you say
Hmm.
often, like, you can't really lose a friend. So if
You
somebody
can't.
is your friend, they will be there. I always admire, especially as I've gotten older and I've changed so much and my friendships continue to evolve, like those people who can remain friends are like people they met when they were like 5, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? And then they like grown. And I'm certain that that doesn't mean that the relationship didn't go through periods where they
Right.
weren't, maybe seeing eye to eye, or maybe they had lost touch and they found their way back or
Hmm.
something like that. So I'm sure that there are pockets like that that people don't always talk about. But it's interesting to know, like, to see people who like met early in life and then are still able to
Hmm.
be
Maintain their
together. I
friendship.
think about my grandmother who has a girlfriend who lives in California. My grandmother used to live in Cali when she was in her, I think she was in her early 20s, and they're still girlfriends to this day. But I also was on the side of those conversations when she was like, she could come see me. Why I gotta go see her all the
Right.
time? Or,
Mhm.
I haven't talked to her in a while. She worked my nerves, or I did some, like, so I've been able to witness, like, even though they've been, friends for what, 60 years,
Yeah.
legitimately at this point, I also know that there was a little bit of like,
Yeah.
you know, it's time for her to come see me or whatever it was. So, yeah, I don't even know how we got there, but just thought about it.
No, just the evolution and the changing and the
Mhm.
seasons of a relationship, you will feel all of those things.
Mhm.
And I think realizing that it's okay to feel those things and to have moments where we don't talk as much,
Mhm.
but you still a part of my tribe,
Mhm. Mhm.
and we can come back and be able to just say to each other like, man, we ain't talked in a long time, and I want that to be different,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To be able to say, I want to make a different move, or what is it that you need in a relationship, or what's going on with your family? When can I see you? When
Yeah.
can I just pop up on you?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm threatening some of my friends and been like, look, I'm gonna be at your job,
Mhm.
in the parking lot, because I haven't heard from you. We ain't been able to get anything together lined up. Like, all right, I'm finna be there now. What do we do? What do we need to do to make this happen?
Yeah, and I appreciate the friendships where you literally haven't talked for a while, you get back on the phone,
Hmm.
like, you pick up exactly where you left off.
Absolutely.
Because, honestly, there was a moment, I think I even mentioned this on our last episode or one of the recent ones. Women on Facebook where, for those of you still on Facebook, I did just age myself. But yes, I scroll Facebook.
Uh,
Putting those
Facebook for old people now.
well, I guess that's what I am. They were putting those posts, women was primarily putting the posts, copy and pasting this post about, you know, women going through like marital issues, trying to raise kids, trying to work a job, all these things. And it doesn't mean that I'm not a good friend, but I have
Mhm.
life happening to me right now.
Yeah.
And to your point earlier about our friend Carolyn, like, you're just trying to like make sure your home works, your
Hmm.
life works. And it doesn't mean that they care any less about you. It's
Hmm.
just, I think those seasons are okay. And I don't think that's what we're talking about here in this conversation. This is really just like, okay, we are in relationship. We're acknowledging that even if some time has lost, how we are engaging with each
Hmm.
other. If that's not working for some reason, then probably this is coming into play a
Right.
little bit. Yeah. Um, I think we just talked about how it feels when it's back on track. Just
Hmm.
like there's alignment, right?
Right.
You think there's anything else to say there?
No, other than when I think of alignment, right? I think of like getting an alignment on my car.
Mm-hmm.
You get in the line and things are running perfectly, and then after like driving for a while, after like hitting bumps in the road and all those things, your car can come out of alignment, and you need to go in the shop to get realigned. Um, Doing maintenance is a thing. Being able to be intentional about making sure that you have what you need during the different seasons of life, during the different seasons of relationship, during the different seasons of your friendships, all of those things, it has to be done with intention,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And being able, even if I say it's not you, it's me,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm doing that with intention to stay in relationship
Yeah.
with you,
Mm-hmm.
and I want us to be able to shift together, so you know that I'm it, I'm not neglecting you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying I'm throwing you away. I'm saying that something is going on in my life right now that I'm having to pay a little bit more attention to your
Mm-hmm.
earlier point. And I still want to have a conversation about how we can maintain
Mm-hmm.
and stay in relationship and figure out a way to remain in alignment. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-mm.
That's a part of how longevity happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I want longevity, but I also want the longevity to be fruitful.
Yeah.
I want us to always be producing for each other
Yeah.
in ways that feel good
Yeah. I agree.
for both of us.
Yeah.
So that would be the only thing that I have to add to that portion of it.
It's a good word, sir. And then what about the music for this moment? How does it feel? Let me get my phone so I can get the correct version of the song I just mentioned. Go ahead. I'm listening to you.
So apparently there are two musics for the moment.
Yes.
So mine is this song called 2009 by Mac Miller, in which he just says, I ain't gotta lie no more. All I do is take a pause and breathe and just let things happen, basically. I'm not the same person I was in 2009, not the same person I was in 2018.
Yeah.
And basically he's saying I'm all right with that.
What are some moments from that song that you were talking me through it earlier? I think you should share.
There's a portion of the song where he talks about like not being anxious to have difficult conversation anymore. Like whatever you have going on in your life, that's working for you. And what I have going on here, I'm not ashamed, right? I'm not afraid to say that this is what I need in this moment. And there was basically he's alluding to the fact that there was a time in my life where I had all of this anxiety.
I'm here. It ain't 2009 no more.
Yeah, it
it's
ain't
just
that.
Not.
And even saying that I want to keep the peace looks different because my peace is something different. Do I want to keep the peace or do I want to keep my peace?
Or do I want to keep your peace? Because that's basically how I used to operate. I want to keep your peace and my peace don't matter. But that's not not doing that anymore.
Don't preach my song. Preach your song.
I'm feeling like I might have already shared this before, but if it's already on the playlist, run it back then again. It's just Everything Must Change. Quincy Jones does have a version but there's this one more soulful version that I love by Oleta Adams. Also, same lyrics, same everything. Everything Must Change. I will never forget this. And it's a very interesting story. Sorry, I'm starting to ramble, but I grew up doing competitive dance since the age of like 10 or 11, right? And we had solos and group numbers and duets and all these things. There was this one dancer who had a solo to this song, to this version of Everything Must Change. I was 12, and I remember just watching her perform it in my studio, and at 12 being moved to tears by this song. And still to this day, there's something about the delivery of it, but there's just the whole song is just talking about how everything must change. Nothing stays the same. Young becomes the old. And then there's this one part that it gets softer and she's like, except rain falls from the clouds, sunlight from the sky. Do you know what I mean? Morning birds do fly. It just talks about life. You can also think about the Beatles, right? Aren't they the ones that have the song? Of everything, turn.
That's not mine.
Something about, I'm going to find it. I'm going to add Beatles to this list too, because we are well-versed and well-rounded, well-traveled by people. Okay. Well, if you joined us from YouTube, please go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. You can check out all of the podcasts we have. This is episode 43. Turn
43
up.
of them.
So yeah, lucky 7 joined. I added the numbers. You said I did that. Okay. Anyways, if you joining us from YouTube, make sure that you subscribe. You'll get alerts when we drop a new episode every 2 weeks. If you are joining us from Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, please follow and rate and leave a comment. Let us know what you like about it. And we'd love to hear also what you like for us to talk about. I don't think we've ever done this before, but if you are ever interested in having us cover a topic, feel free to shoot us an email at thelovehaze@gmail.com. And like we always say, life is gonna life. Life will always present you with a haze, but we have everything within us that we need to navigate through it.
And thank y'all for joining us this time. We hope that y'all will join us next time. And no matter what, even if y'all send us a topic, just know that we navigating it together. All right? It ain't because you done tapped into some experts. We over here ready to do this thing together. We just want to try to navigate life with y'all. We appreciate y'all being with us, and just know that you're not alone. We all in this thing together. We're gonna tap in. So see y'all next time.
Holla.